three, four.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you live from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHBC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. We can be seen on the Facebook live pages of WHBC and Rabbi Perl. Here I am, I'm waving. I'm actually waving to all those on the radio. I'm going to the right, I'm going to the left. I'm doing the hokey pokey, and I don't know what I'm doing here this morning. But good morning. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. Hi there, in case you didn't get it, this is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You know why I say that? Because we are heard not only here in the morning at 8:30 a.m., but also 11 in the evening, 11 p.m. So if you forget to tune in, or you really want to go back and hear these unbelievable words of wisdom, you get two chances. So good morning to everybody. Good morning to Eitan Kelshevsky, Tom Schwartz, to Denise Zelikson. Good morning. Yofi Odessa. Fantastic. I'm telling you, we're getting people from all over the world listening in, and I hope we have some people on Long Island too. Don't tell anybody. That's the best kept secret. So I'm going to begin today by dedicating our words to our brothers and sisters, all in the Ukraine, who find themselves surrounded by terror and danger, whose lives are being suddenly upended and shattered into thousands of pieces. It's dedicated to our colleagues, those emissaries of the Rebbe in that country, who have, with such self-sacrifice and brotherly love, risked everything to lead and support their communities in these trying times, demonstrating bravery and nobility that is the source and the pride for all of us. So may our words today be a small measure of comfort, and may we merit to see the light that lurks behind this darkness with the coming of Mashiach. So good morning to Sharon Jacobs. Good morning to Joel Harris. Joel Harris does live in Mineola. Unbelievable. So we actually have one person listening in Mineola. That's very heartwarming and very encouraging to myself coming from Mineola. We have one other person listening. Patty Fuchs, Shalom Aleichem. And unbelievable. So, of course, correct, Linda, it's to everybody in that community, in Russia and the surrounding areas, that we dedicate our thoughts today. Of course, what's on our mind is, of course, the amazing transformation of the great holiday of Purim that comes this coming Wednesday evening, all the way through Thursday. Purim. Purim is a day in the Jewish community when negativity, terrible disasters and decrees were upended and totally transformed. And may that miracle of then continue in our times as well. And I'm assured that it will be happening. Good things will be happening for all of us. Welcome from Michael Weingart, all the way from Germany, listening all the way from Germany. Thank you so much. I'm going to first, I think I'm dedicated. I'm really high this morning on what we can learn from Queen Esther. Now, I know there's a wonderful lady who actually lives in Merrick, who was so upset with her parents because when she was in Hebrew school, they dressed her up as Queen Vashti. Can you imagine? Vashti. And not Queen Esther. But don't worry. Your life, Dorothy, and your example, and Baruch Hashem, your family, really live up to the standards of Queen Esther in every single sense of the word. So good morning to Zalman Weg, to Joseph Anakevich, Baruch Hashem, welcome back. I want to first talk about the importance that unity in nationhood should never ever supersede personal individuality. Let me explain. Purim is celebrated on two different days. In most parts of the world, which includes Mineola, Purim is observed on the 14th day of Adar, which this year is Thursday, March the 17th. In Jerusalem and other ancient walled cities, the holiday is actually celebrated the next day, on the 15th day of Adar, which would be this Friday. Now, this disparity has always bothered me. Wouldn't it be nicer if everyone enjoyed Purim at the same time, just like all the other holidays? Now, this is curious. If you think about this, let's consider, what is the highlight of the holiday of Purim? Its aim is to unite the community. That's one of the reasons why we exchange mishloach manos, food gifts. We go out of our way to give money to the poor. Why is that? To help this community bond and shoulder mutual responsibilities for other people around us. So the whole essence of the holiday is unity. So how come, in different parts of the world, in Jerusalem, for example, and other world cities in Israel, they celebrated on Friday, while the rest of Israel, and certainly around the diaspora, around the world, will be doing it on Thursday. Why not keep it to one day? Along comes the great Hasidic master, the Heroine, and he explains that Purim models the beauty and the complexity of true unity. See, Haman, the arch enemy in the story of Purim, noticed that the Jewish people at that time were a divided people. They were keenly focused on their differences, dissent, and disagreements. So he took advantage of this undercurrent of adversity. He understood that a house divided should not stand, and made the case to Achashverosh for their imminent annihilation, God forbid. Mordechai and Esther noticed that Haman was preying, Preying, on this Achilles heel. They addressed the pervasive national disunity. So they gathered everybody together, taught them to focus on their commonalities, community, and cohesiveness. The nation that prayed together and stayed together, and what happened? Haman's decree was averted. But here's the clincher, my friends. Esther and Mordechai understood that true unity does not mean that each person has to be the same, or that they all observe identical customs. It means that as a people focus on their common goals and shared relationships, they start to shine as individuals. A nation consists of many different people who accept each other as complementary parts of a beautiful symphony. We all have a common mission to strive and live by these Jewish values. And each person, through his or her own unique strengths, character, and personality, contributes to that shared mission. So under the leadership of Mordechai and Esther, we learnt that this togetherness does not overshadow their personal uniqueness. They were united while expressing their own distinct personalities. So by establishing the holiday of Purim on two different times, Esther, Mordechai, and the Jewish people perpetuated the message that the unity of a nation does not supersede the personal individuality. Rejoicing on different days of Purim reminds us that we're really part of one people, yet encouraged not to be exactly the same as others. People can share the same goals and ideas without having to be the same. This insight is relevant to personal relationships as well. Marriage partners do not need to be copies of each other. They do not need to have similar personalities or share the same opinions about everything. A couple can have a close, fulfilling, joyful relationship by celebrating each other's unique personalities, traits, and ideas. Marriage entails the couple appreciating their differences against a backdrop of common goals, shared purposes, and of course, a respectful relationship. Part of the individuality of marriage is that each member of the couple will see things differently and have their own perspective and understanding of situations and decisions. Therefore, a successful, satisfying marriage requires spouses to give each other the space to have their own thoughts, ideas, even when they do not agree. So empathy is the cornerstone of a true relationship. Understanding the other's perspective, even if they do not agree, creates cohesion, gives validation, and of course strengthens the couple's love for each other. Now, before we go on further about Queen Esther, an amazing person, I want to say hello to Osnas Beck, Thank you so much. Mazel Tov to Alan Grabkowitz, to Levana Cohen-Lichter, to Robin Hanig Slemowitz, Peter Hirschon, wow, unbelievable, and everybody else listening out there. So for those who are listening on WHBC, I have the greatest face for radio. And those who are watching on Facebook, they know the truth. So let's look at Queen Esther. Because Queen Esther shows us how to overcome our obstacles and move forward despite our fears. Imagine a person is an orphan in being raised up by a cousin. You are utterly alone in this world, always wondering where you really came from and if you really feel like you belong anywhere. Suddenly, you are forced into a marriage to a man that you neither like nor respect. You are stuck in a foreign palace where you can only eat fruit and seeds. There's no one for you to speak to and nothing for you to do except wonder how long you will have to remain living in this life and someone else really has come and chosen for you. I'm talking about none other than Queen Esther's life. She could have been filled with self-pity, thinking how unfair it is that she was born into this world without parents, and how after all of her suffering, she was forced into a role that could have easily robbed her of her dignity and her faith. She could have given up. She could have sunk into a hole of her own despair. But instead, my friends, hello, are you listening, Gus? Instead, Queen Esther becomes a heroine. She keeps her faith and her dignity. She refused to give up even when everything else seemed lost. She took her tragic story and used it to transform her life. So here I have the beginnings of 5 lessons of transformation that we can learn from Queen Esther. Number 1, the obstacle is the way. Esther took the suffering that she experienced as an orphan and used it to make her stronger. She knew what it felt like to be lonely. She knew that she had overcome pain as a child, and she had the resilience within her to face these new challenges. When she stepped into the palace, she used these obstacles of her past as stepping stones instead of excuses. She chose to use her pain instead of being suffocated by it. A second insight: the more focused a person is on finding happiness for him or herself in this world, we all know, the more the happiness seems to elude us. This is because the truth is, to find the greatest happiness is in giving to others and living for something greater than our own desires. Esther could have decided to make herself comfortable in the palace with the luxuries, the pleasures of the palace, and ignore the world and her people beyond its walls. Guess what? Esther wasn't living for herself. She had grown up in the house of Mordechai, and she knew that she had a responsibility to stand up. Stand up New York, or at least stand up Persia. Number 3, we often think that we need to forge our paths without anyone's help, without anybody's support. Esther was the queen. She could have decided just to use her own resources to try to save the day, save the Jewish people in the story of Purim. Guess what? She chose instead to reach out, because as soon as she was ready for this mission to go to present herself to Achashverosh, she said to Mordechai, "Go and gather every single one of us, the entire nation, and they should come together and to pray and to beg for her success." She needed their prayers. She knew in her heart that ultimately we rise and fall together. She had the humility to be able to say, "I need your help. Please fight beside me." Now, another important aspect. When Esther risked her life and walked towards the king to beg for her nation, she felt the divine presence begin to leave her. She felt weak and afraid, as the commentaries say, like she couldn't go on. But faith doesn't mean that we always feel strong and courageous. Faith means that we persist even when we are exhausted and afraid. Esther did not give up when she felt like she couldn't go on. Instead, she prayed. She demanded to know, "Hashem, why have you left me? I need you." She found the faith to reach out, to beg for strength, and find a way to make the impossible possible. She kept moving forward until she reached the king, and we all know the rest of the story. There's a fifth idea. I've been thinking about this. Sometimes the best way to fight evil is by inviting it into the party. We often can't overcome destructive habits and desires by fighting them directly. They are too strong and too deceitful for head-on battles. But we can trick them, like Esther did when she invited Haman to one party after another. We can make them feel like they are welcome in our lives, and then we can turn around and channel them into tools for good. Use anger to fight for justice. Use beauty to build a home. Use pleasure to connect to enduring values. As I was thinking about this, one of the reasons in the Jewish community on the Shabbos, after the davening, after the morning prayers in particular, many synagogues sit down to a kiddush, as we just do in our own homes. We go home, special foods there that reflect the Shabbos experience. Why do we spend so much time with all kinds of foods on the Shabbos? We should be spending more. It's a spiritual day. Let's learn more and daven more. And yet, a good amount of time is spent with cholent and kugel and Jerusalem kugel and stuffed derma and schlishkes, I don't know, and schleikes, not something else. Why is that? And I remember learning in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the animal soul doesn't like us sitting around studying and doing and learning and davening and praying. So what do? We invite him into a kiddush. We're actually inviting the animal soul to the kiddush. Let him eat the cholent. Let him eat all the food. And while the Yetzer Hara, or the animal soul, is eating the cholent and the kugel, we can focus on the spirituality. That's exactly what Esther did. She invited Haman into the party, tricked him, and of course, as I said, we know the rest of the story. So Purim is an opportunity to transform our mundane pleasures into spiritual joy. I want to thank Joseph Anakevich. If you're watching on Facebook, he has put up some very insightful thoughts. Our fragmented communities into a unified nation. That's what Purim is. These ideas. Our despair, turning despair into redemption. Stagnation into growth. Let's follow Queen Esther's example as we too today overcome our obstacles and move forward. Now, there's another issue that many people are worrying about, because Dr. Kilshevsky is always concerned what he should dress up as. What should he dress up as? It's a custom to dress up a costume on Purim, and some friends of mine think it would be funny to dress up as a group and have some fun in a good-natured way. And he wanted to know, is there a standard of how a person should dress up? Can a costume be offensive in some way? Which is really not the intent of what we're dressing up as. How should we do this? Well, the truth is, if you think about the holiday, the 4 special commandments, mitzvahs for the holiday, what are they? And we're inviting everyone to our synagogue on a Wednesday evening at 7:30, and I'm sure your own synagogue has that as too. Make sure to hear the Megillah. So the holiday of Purim requires us to hear the Megillah twice, not just at night, but by day as well. Number 2, we enjoy a festival meal, which is typically late Thursday afternoon this year. And we send gifts of food to our friends. It's called Mishloach Manos. And then we also give charity to the poor. That's called Matanos Levyonim. And there is this tradition of dressing up as well, adding to the topsy-turvy-like nature of the day that dates back to at least the 15th century. And the different reasons for dressing up vary. Among them, it's an allusion to the nature of the Purim miracle and the holiday's theme of concealment, where the details of the story are really miracles hidden within nature. Therefore, thus the dress up, the costumes. Another possible reason we dress up on Purim is to minimize the embarrassment of the poor who go around collecting charity on this day. So while there's a discussion in Jewish law about the considerable leeway given to how people may dress up on Purim, many authorities emphasize that considering the optimal, that what's the most optimal accepting costume, it should be part of the rejoicing, and not to create inappropriate dress or problematic aspects from certainly from a Jewish modest Jewish law perspective. In light of this, surely a custom that can make other people uncomfortable can easily and should be, forget about it. Should be substituted for one that brings joy to everyone. Put another way, yes, we dress up on Purim and engage in fun and antics of the day, but it is a Purim costume that you're wearing, one that should express the meaning of the day. And what is that? Jewish pride against all odds, and of course, acts of kindness to others. As we talk about Esther, there's so much we can learn from her. And I'm just fascinated and focused on the powerful lessons of Queen Esther. So again, I want to say hello, make sure I've gotten everybody here. Thank you so much for listening on the radio, watching the Facebook on WHBC. I'm now waving. Everybody now on my own Facebook page. Thank you. Let's continue a little bit more about Queen Esther, because she's really regarded as one of the greatest Jewish women in history. Her amazing story contains so many lessons that apply to us today. So let me continue. As I mentioned some ideas before, there are some more insights. I want to say hello to Richard Ruttenberg. If a person, for example, this, by the way, it just comes to mind, if a person by mistake is putting on his tefillin and it hit the ground, let's say a person by putting his tefillin on and it suddenly slipped off and hit the ground, the person should fast for a couple of hours, give some charity, and study again the laws of tefillin from the Code of Jewish Law. That'll help the person do that. So here are some practical examples to what we can learn from Queen Esther. Believe in your hidden powers. Esther's name means hidden in Hebrew. First, she kept hidden her identity as a Jew in the palace of the Persian king. She also didn't lose hope when it seemed that God's protection was in hiding. Even when she was sequestered in darkness, she called upon her strength and courage to have an impact, and her actions ultimately saved her people. We too must recognize, just as Esther, we too can tap into our own hidden powers and transform the world around us. At first, Esther tried hiding from King Ahasuerus' guards to avoid marrying him, but ultimately she couldn't avoid the inevitable. When she was made queen, Mordecai, the leader of the Jewish people at that time, understood that such things were not happening such a righteous woman unless she was destined for a higher purpose to rescue her people. To me, it teaches us, wherever you may be right now, wherever we may be, God places us where we need to be in order to fulfill our mission in life. When a person lives with a mission, nothing stands in the way. Another aspect of great Queen Esther. When contestants vying to be Ahasuerus' new queen were brought to the palace, they were given lengthy beauty regimens involving physical pampering and cosmetic treatments, but Esther declined those luxuries. Instead, it was her natural beauty that immediately captured the king's attention above all others. You are the best version of yourself. That's the lesson I took from that. Another important thing is be principled. Chevra, if we realize we're on a mission here, if we're on this world to eat pizza, fine. But if we realize we're here on a higher mission, then we must remember to be principled. Even in the palace, Esther ate only kosher food. And when the king went out of his way to persuade her to tell her national origin, right, he threw a party on her, gave tax breaks to the citizens considering marrying another. Guess what? We know she held her ground. To me, I learned from this is, let your principles guide you. Let your principles guide you. I'm not talking about the principles in your school. I'm talking about the principles in our lives of what we know our mission is for. We're stronger together. Another lesson. One of the Haman's complaints was, as I mentioned before, that we're all dispersed. well, she helped to bring us all together. I want to share a story that I heard last night. This happened about 80 years ago or more. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe came to the United States then in 1929 to raise money for the Jewish community in the Soviet Union, 1929. And he came to a particular wealthy individual who had a Chabad background, that had come to America and, had somewhat given up on his background. So the previous Rebbe came to him, of course, so he comes to the office of this man and waits in the office, and the secretary tells the owner that there's a rabbi out there. Okay, he says, write out a check for $18 and wish him the best. So $18 in those days was like $900, but this is not what the previous Rebbe was coming to get, an $18 check. So he insisted he wanted to see the owner. So the owner comes out and he says, I'll give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes, that's all of my time, 5 minutes. So he says, what are you here for? Money? He said, no. He says, listen, my kapota, my coat that I'm wearing has a loose button, and you run a fabrik, you run a factory that makes coats and buttons. I want you to tie the button onto my coat to make it stronger. The guy says, where are you from? He says, I'm from Riga. How many miles away is that? 5,000 miles away. He says, you've traveled 5,000 miles just to come to my factory to tie on your buttons? There's nobody in Latvia over there who can do it for you? It's unbelievable. I can't believe you would come 5,000 miles just to have to sew a button. So the previous Rebbe looked at him and says, and do you think a soul that comes from God, each one of us have a soul in the neshama, has traveled from God himself, so to speak, many, many more miles? Do you think that is believable, that the purpose is to come all these many miles into a body, into this world, to sew buttons? That is believable. You can't believe 5,000, so how can you believe? He was trying to get the message over to the person. It's great to have a successful business and be able to tie buttons, but that's not the reason why we're on this world. Surely everyone should be blessed with parnasa and income and comfort, but that is not the reason why we're here. There's a mission. We're not here to tie buttons, right? That's great if that's your chosen profession or where you find. The idea is that all of these things that we have in this world is here for a higher purpose, and we're all on that mission. When a person is on a mission, he's principled, the person stays the course, has tremendous faith. And I really would say that what is going on in Ukraine today and how the community has risen and those who were able to get across the borders and how the Chabad rabbis are there to welcome them and make all these arrangements is part and parcel of this entire Purim experience, where people are standing up and doing the right thing to help those in trouble in so many different ways. So, dear friends, as we come closer to Purim this week, please remember the many mitzvahs. Please remember Queen Esther. Please remember how we stood under this tremendous gray sky of what Haman had in mind, and that total transformation of what the Purim is all about. May Hashem bless us that just as in those days, we're going to have the same miracle today for the entire world, a total transformation from evil to goodness. And that, of course, is being helped by all the wonderful efforts being made to stand by the people of Ukraine and what it means to the entire world. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a good week and a good, happy, joyous Purim. Thank you again.